Hey guys, hope you're all having a great day. So in today's video, I wanted to show you some garden maintenance that I've been working on. This is a video that's been spanning over the last few weeks or so. I have one small project with the roses that I did, and then just the rest of it was a bunch of maintenance that I took care of. So let's just show you what everything looks like now on July 10th. First up are these roses. So this is actually an update. As you can see from the beginning of this video, these roses definitely did not look like this. Just some quick information on these roses. I originally planted them way in the back over here with these arborvitaes. They didn't get nearly enough sun. They didn't do well. Transplanted them in front of this cherry tree. They didn't come back well from the winter that we had. And as they were starting to grow, bunnies started eating them. So I had to immediately dig them out of the ground and then just put them on the deck where they could grow a lot more and then not be harmed by any animals. So that's kind of the story. I dug them up maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they've actually put on a lot of growth in those couple of weeks. So in the back here are 3 At Last roses, and then the other 3 are in Oh So Easy Double Pink. These are all from Proven Winners. I originally got them and they were a good size, but they've gotten a lot smaller since. These darker leaves that you see are the leaves that were originally on these plants. This one hasn't grown much, but the other 2 have definitely started to grow, and they've darkened a lot. They've started to put on some growth, and you can see this beautiful flower that's left over. It looked really pretty yesterday. And what I've been doing is I haven't pruned them really at all, but I've been pinching off any flower buds that I see on them. So like, see this right here? I would just pinch that off so that way it encourages more leaf production instead of flower production. I just let that one plant flower because I just saw it yesterday and I was like, I'll just let it bloom. But yeah, so they're doing a lot better. They're in larger pots, like maybe a 3-gallon, and I think that one is a 5-gallon. I just use regular potting mix, and I'm gonna leave them here for the next couple months, and I might transplant them in September. I have one rose in the front that hasn't been touched by the rabbits, and I think part of it may be the fact that it's a lot bigger than these. So I'm hoping that if I can get these to a bigger size and then put them in the ground somewhere, that maybe the rabbits won't really touch it. And if I do spray them for the first season, as they continue to grow on, hopefully they'll be okay. That's my only hope. We've had a lot of issues with rabbits this year, so I'm just doing the best I can with these roses, but really no part of the yard is protected unless I have them on the deck here in pots. So I'll see what I'm gonna do with these roses, but for now, they're just gonna continue growing on this deck, and then as they continue to grow, I want to prune them a little bit just to get them to a better shape than they are. Now, next up is this avocado. I originally kept it in the pot that it was in over the winter time, and I just got one of those green bamboo stakes to stake all 4 plants up, and I quickly realized that just wasn't gonna work. So I went to the garden center, I got a new pot, and I staked up each one individually, and I wanna show you all the new growth on these avocados. These are very finicky plants. They don't like being transplanted inside and outside, but I put it in just a slightly larger pot. It really wasn't all that root bound, so it didn't need a much larger pot, but this will support them a little bit more. And I use this sturdy stretch tie to stake each one of these up. But what's really cool, as you can see, is they're starting to send up these side shoots. They only really have leaves on the very top, and they're starting to grow. Like this one actually has 3 spikes up here, but you can see they just did not make it well from going from inside to outside, and they're kind of slow growers. So I'm excited to see that this one for sure has 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly a 4th growth point there. This one has one that got started. It looks like there's another one towards the bottom. Maybe one here. The other 2, I'm not sure if they're doing anything, but they might start to, since they're in a much better pot and much better situation. But these definitely grow more when they're outside in the summer. I also, as we eat avocados in the house, I might take a few more seeds and just pop them in and let those grow on too. And it'll be a nice like multi-trunk plant because it'll be nice and full. Avocados aren't usually a super full plant when you keep them as a house plant like this. So just throwing a few more in will really fill up that space. Okay, so next up are these bananas. So, as you can see, first of all, the perennial hibiscus have grown quite a bit since this video started. But these bananas, I put blood meal on. I used maybe about like a 1/8 of a cup, I would say, for each one of these plants. I just kind of sprinkled it around the base of it. And I have been cutting back the suckers. In fact, I just did it right before I started this video, so it was nice and cleaned up. But it is something I have to do generally on like a once a week to every 2-week basis, just to keep these cleaned. They're not supposed to grow that way. These bananas are supposed to grow in clumps. There's gonna be multiple plants that come up. But I just like the look of having an individual one for this year. It's just something I'm trying out. And I've realized it's not necessarily helping them grow any faster because they are putting a lot of energy into sending up more suckers. But I'm still gonna feed them heavy, and I just like this look for this year. So I just wanted to clarify that. But you can see the size of these leaves massive compared to my hands, and usually about once a week it's been putting out a new leaf, especially now that we're getting into some hot temperatures. They are really starting to grow quick. I did the same thing with these alocasias, or elephant ears. First of all, look at how massive that leaf is. Insane, like literally insane how big this is. That just opened up the other day too. Same thing, like every couple of days this is sending out another leaf, and they're really starting to fill up this space. But I gave them blood meal. These I don't need to cut back any suckers. These just grow as a clump, and they just look really nice behind these King Tut grasses. This banana I just cleaned up. I gave this blood meal as well, so it's looking really nice, and that has put on a lot of growth as well. But this is not a hardy banana. This is the Musa Dwarf Cavendish. This is the type of banana that you find at the grocery store, just a dwarf version. And hopefully at some point soon, probably not this year, but maybe next year, I'll get to see this flower. Right next to this banana though is this olive, which this was looking really sad, and it's really starting to look better now. What I did was I needed to stake up this olive, and in fact, I actually might get a thicker stake to keep it a little bit more straight, because you can see it's still a bit curved. But this had such an odd shape to it, and it just needed to be staked straight up, so that way it had a better overall shape. It looked a little weird at first, but the leaves have oriented themselves better. I also cut back a couple of branches, like you can see this one was cut here. And because of that, now there's 2 branches coming out from the side here, and a bunch more that are starting to pop up. So all of that lighter color that you see is all new growth. And even down here, you can see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches all coming from this one that was cut back. And it's gonna help this get a lot bushier. And I would say by the end of the summer, this is gonna look really good. Like I said though, you can see how curved that is. So I might replace this bamboo stake, the green one, with a thicker tomato stake or tomato pole. And then I think this will hold up the olive a little bit better. This is really exciting because I'm finally starting to get some dahlia flowers. These I just staked up last week, so that way they would grow a little bit more straight. Using the same bamboo stakes, I just got them in one big package. This one is on its way out, but this is called Lavender Perfection. This one is actually just starting to open, so you can see how pretty that is. I have had issues with some sort of insect, or maybe the rabbits that are eating the dahlia flowers, but it's not enough to have too much of an impact on the plant. The rest of these are looking pretty good. Most of them are budding up and starting to produce a bunch of flower buds, so that's really exciting. And this is the only one that really, it's grown a lot, it just hasn't really produced any flowers, so not sure exactly why. This is the only one that's a different variety. This one is Cafe au lait. The rest of these are all Lavender Perfection. They were just a bunch of tubers that I split up. So not too sure on this one. Maybe that's what it's supposed to do. But if you guys have any suggestions, this is my first year growing dahlias, so let me know. Over here is the eucalyptus that I staked up. This has put on a lot of growth as it's been getting warmer outside, but I just needed to stake this up so it had a better shape to it. I may end up cutting some of these lower branches and trying to stick them in water or give them some rooting hormone so I can have like a multi-branched eucalyptus so it fills this pot a little more. But it's definitely grown very well, and probably at the end of the season I'm going to cut all these branches back and use them inside. Next up is this tomato plant, which is actually looking really sad. I had to go back and I had to really stake this up this time because I staked it up once and then I hit it last week and the whole thing fell over and the stake just wasn't holding it up anymore. It also has gotten a lot of yellowing in the leaves, which I'm actually not too sure of why. I don't think it has blossom end rot because none of the tomatoes have that issue. Not sure if it's any other nutrient issue. But I did put plant tone in here originally, and I just staked this up really sturdy and then picked all the tomatoes that were colored, so that way it takes a little bit of stress off of the plant. It's looking okay. There's still some nice green leaves. I'm thinking in the next couple of weeks, since I just did this morning, it'll really start to fill in. Then right behind here is the palm. This was a pretty simple thing. It just was filled with a lot of weeds, and the whole plant was sunken down in the pot a little more than I wanted it to be. So what I ended up doing was I lifted the whole plant out of the pot, I weeded it, I put some extra soil, new soil at the bottom, and then another fresh layer on top, and that should help. I also gave it blood meal because you can see some of these leaves were kind of yellow. That kind of happened in the winter time, and especially when I brought these outside in the spring. Well, I didn't bring them outside, but they were brought outside and put in full sun, so it caused them to burn a little bit. But I gave them some blood meal, so hopefully they can green up just a little bit. But the new growth looks really good on these, so I'm excited to see that, and there are a couple of leaves that are starting to open up. As you look at these stairs, I weeded this, although there's already weeds starting to come back. I think at some point we're going to try to seal this and actually prevent any weeds from growing through here, like put some sort of a sand in. I cut back this Japanese maple. These boxwoods we're gonna have to do something with soon. But the main thing I worked on over here was that this osteospermum, I guess it's starting to get too large for this pot. And when we had some really heavy rains, it actually split right down in the middle. You can still kind of see it a little bit. Nothing cracked, but what I ended up doing was I took some of these bamboo stakes, I put 3 around, I used this, it's kind of like the bread tie, I don't know exactly what you would call it, but I wrapped that around to kind of hold everything together, and then I deadheaded it, and it's definitely looking better than before. But I think osteospermums do better in the ground, or if they're intermixed with other plants that can hold them together. I don't think it's not going to repeat something like this where it's just in its own pot again, because I think it just doesn't have enough structure to hold itself together. And then over here, these are looking really nice. I'm very pleased with these pots this year. The only thing I did was the alyssum was almost on the ground, so I just cut it up a little bit. There was a couple stragglers that were kind of growing low. And everything is kind of weighed down today too because we've been getting a lot of rain. But it definitely cleaned up these 2 pots. But I mean, look how gorgeous. Alyssum, begonias, and then the coffee cups colocasia. The last thing that I worked on was this side bed over here. So there's the front of the house. There's the limelight hydrangea tree, which is starting to bud up, as you can see. It's the last type of panicle to bloom, so that's why it looks like it's a little bit behind a lot of the others, but that's how it's supposed to grow. What I did over here was I deadheaded this rose, and then same thing with the other one as well, just because they were looking a little sad after they had their first flush of blooms. I also gave them that systemic rose and flower care. Oh, there's Seb in the window looking out at me. So this one was taken care of, that one was taken care of. They're starting to push out a little bit of growth. You can see the new red there, and then there's also a flower bud here. So I'm hoping in the next maybe few weeks or so, these will start to push out kind of their second flush of blooms. The other thing I did, and these are the tomato poles that I was talking about, I just staked everything up. We had an issue, especially with this grass last year, flopping over towards the end of the season. So what I ended up doing was I stuck one of these like 5-foot tomato poles in the ground, and then I just used some jute twine, as you can see here. It's just like a regular twine that has a lot of friction so it doesn't slide against the wooden pole. And then maybe about a foot or so off of the ground is where I staked this. I originally staked this one a little too tall, and it looked like it was cinched a little too high. It still kind of looks like that a little bit, but that's kind of the best that I could get it for now. This one's a lot airier too because it didn't come back too well this year, but still there, still provides some structure. And I think we're gonna leave those poles there year round. I might spray paint them black or something so they look a little bit nicer, but these grasses will be good for the rest of the season. Over here is just the weeping Norway spruce, and I wanted to make sure that there was 2 leaders for sure that were growing straight up, just because that's kind of how it looked when we first got it. So I put 2 more tomato poles in, and then I used that sturdy stretch tie that I have been using for like the avocados and that kind of stuff, and just made sure that these are growing straight up, and then these will continue to grow up for the next, few years or so. And then I'll probably stop staking them once they get to the top of those poles. So that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section down below. Besides that, I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you in the next one.